Good morning, everyone. I am here in Lyons, Georgia. Excuse me, my voice is a little bit rough. Sometimes adjusting to new climates and new temperatures and new places, I lose my voice a little bit. But here I am, and I am out with the Mustangs here at the Wild Mustang Ranch, and I thought I would do tea time from the herd today. So these guys are a combination of Mustangs that get to live here for the rest of their lives, Mustangs that are on their way to Europe, Mustangs that are looking for homes. There's a whole bunch of different horses here, and it's been a really interesting clinic that we've got to do together this week. We have one more day to go before I head off to Australia for the rest of my clinics. So I thought I would talk a little bit today about optimism and pessimism. I'm interested in this subject because I think it is integral to, excuse me, things catching in my throat. It is integral to understanding freedom, to understand this spectrum between optimism and pessimism. So when we are optimistic that things might go well, we can allow a lot more freedom. We can allow a lot more freedom for the horses, for ourselves. But when we are, excuse me, I came through the gate earlier. I dropped my teacup. I dropped all my tea, so I may have to clear my throat a little bit. I don't have anything to drink with me. Sort of an example of how everything can go wrong sometimes, and it's not so much what went wrong or what went right. It's the fact that I think it's kind of funny. And it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me that I dropped my teacup. It doesn't bother me that I don't have any tea. Am I a little embarrassed that I've lost my voice and it's harder for maybe you guys to understand me? Yeah, that's probably true. But I'm not embarrassed enough that I'm not going to do tea time. It's just a variation of life. And so when we have a sense of optimism, we're kind of curious about what's going to go right. And that allows us to let everything be a lot more free. When we are in a state of pessimism, we're a little bit afraid of what's going to go wrong. And when we're a little bit afraid of what's going to go wrong, we really have to control the controllables. How do we set everything up for success? And so this is just a natural thing that's going to happen that's going to impact how more or less free we are able to allow everybody in our relationships. So the horses, freedom is a thing that I'm fascinated by. And so as I am allowing the horses to be free to do whatever it is that they would like to do, I also need to know that it could go either way. When you give horses freedom, they could make choices that make everybody feel better and better. They could also make choices that make everybody feel worse and worse. And nobody wants to feel worse. The horses don't want to feel worse. The humans don't want to feel worse. Nobody wants to feel worse. And so if we get into a spiral where everybody's feeling worse and worse for whatever reasons, we're going to find our sense of optimism starts to go away. And we don't want to just show up and see what happens. We want to control the controllables. How do we make sure things are going to go better, not worse? So most horse training is about how to control the controllables. How do you pick which things are controllable? How do you choose which things to control and which things to allow freedom in? And freedom-based training is also a sort of training. So we are still training the horses to be one way or another. We are just going to, I'm going to come down here because the donkeys are going to come over and say hi. It's always fun with tea time. We get new animal visitors here. Hello, good morning. This one is fondly named Trouble because he opens all the gates. Got a whole bunch of burrows around us. Anyway, optimism. You could see Trouble here. He came right up next to me, and he's kind of hoping something good will happen. I don't feel any sense of pressure from little Trouble here. I just sense that he would like maybe a little bit of touch. He'd like something to happen, but there's no sense of control in his behaviors. There's just a sense that he would like something to happen, and he thinks if he comes over to interact with me, something good might happen. Turns out he's probably right. I'm a little distracted, but I don't mind giving him a little bit of a touch, a little bit of sensory stimulation on his body. I believe most of the good things in life come from an activation of the senses. So what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel in a way that is not overwhelming to your particular set of senses? And so Trouble here really loves a little bit of a scratch. And you can see him lean into it. You can see that's really great. And I didn't feel controlled by him. I just felt like he came over to be close to me to just see what happens. Maybe something good will happen. And that is a sense of optimism about the world. Any of the animals that are a little bit more pessimistic are going to feel like they want to make sure they can control the controllables, which means they're going to be a little bit more pushy, or they're going to pull away a little bit more dramatically. All of their behavior is going to be more intense because they want to control what they can control to avoid bad things happening. So when we talk about freedom with horses, freedom with people, freedom in any sense, there is a sense of optimism that has to be nurtured, because nobody wants freedom if they think bad things are going to happen. They want control. Now, they might want personal freedom and control for others. That is very, very likely. But you want to think about this idea that if we don't nurture a sense of optimism, there kind of is no desire for freedom. There is a desire for control. Because control is going to minimize how many bad things happen. And that's valid. So you can see I've got quite a few horses visiting me here. These are horses who have a sense of optimism. So if I get close to this human, it's possible good things will happen. And I love their sense of optimism. I don't feel like they're pushing on me. I don't feel like they're doing anything dramatic. They're just showing up to see what happens. Maybe something good happens. Now, how do we nurture a sense of optimism? I believe we nurture a sense of optimism through having enough experiences that turned out well that we then rest and remember. So I believe moments of rest is where memories get cemented in the brain. And unfortunately, what I see in a lot of horses that are quite pessimistic, they believe more bad things are likely to happen than good things. Those are the horses that when something bad happens, they are more likely to rest and remember how bad it was, so that their brain and their body and their system can figure out how to avoid it in the future. So when something is presumed to be worse and worse and worse, everybody is going to try and get ahead of it, get ahead of that problem, and figure out how to avoid the problem in the future. Avoiding the problem in the future often means adding more control. Control comes from putting pressure on before there's a problem. Control comes from setting up the situation so you know what's going to happen. Control comes from organizing routines that are rigid, that don't change. And there's a time and a place for all of those things, because safety has to come first. You have to feel safe enough to interact. But we nurture optimism when we can rest after something good happens. And we nurture pessimism when we rest and ruminate on the bad things that happened. There are always good things that happen. There are always bad things that happen. And when you have a sense of optimism, generally you're going to laugh off the bad things and move on quickly to the next thing. It happened. Move on. Even if it's bad enough that you can't laugh it off, the key is moving on to the next thing, not resting and ruminating on how bad it was. So if we can develop in our horses the habits and the patterns, and that's interesting because habits and patterns are all about controlling the controllables. So if we can have a feeling of, this is a controllable that I can have to avoid bad things happening, just by developing patterns of nurturing optimism instead of nurturing pessimism. So I've got a little horse here that wants to smell the camera. When good things happen, this guy's going to come over, he's going to smell my hands. Hopefully that smell is not overwhelming to him, and he is left wanting more of my company, not less. So anytime the senses are tickled and the senses get activated in a way that is not overwhelming, the horse is going to want more of that experience. If they can use their senses and then rest and remember how good that was, we are nurturing a sense of optimism. When their senses get tickled in a way where they never can have enough, or they're frustrated, or they're irritated, or things are just overwhelming or difficult, what you're going to have is a horse that gets more and more pushy, more and more attempting to control what they can control by eliciting responses. So this guy's thinking about stealing my hat, and that's very playful. It's a very cute behavior. Is that a controlling behavior? In some ways, I think that play is a little bit of a controlling behavior because he's trying to elicit a response from his friends. When is it not a controlling behavior? Is when there are these pauses to see if everything is okay. So what he did is he tried to steal my hat a little bit, and then he paused and he stopped trying to steal my hat. And in that pause, that's where the optimism comes in. I tried a thing. Now I want to see what happens. Now I want to see what the response is. And that's where freedom is beautiful, because it's the try something and then see what happens. It might be really good, versus push and push and push and push and push until you get what you want. That would be more in the control category, the pessimistic. If I don't keep pushing, I won't get the response I want. So it's something interesting to think about, this idea of nurturing optimism in your horses, where anything good might happen, which is where we rest when good things do happen, versus nurturing pessimism in your horses, which is anything bad might happen, which is where we rest after bad things happen. The more pessimism you nurture in your horse, the more they're going to try and control everything to manage the possible bad outcomes. The more we nurture optimism in our horses, the more they're just going to wait and see what happens. So you can see a little trouble here. He just turned his tail. I think he would like his tail to be itched. What I love about this is he turned his tail, he offered it to me, and then he waited to see what happened. The waiting to see what happens is the optimism. He's not worried about not getting his tail scratched. He's optimistic that it might get scratched. And that optimism allows everybody in the group to feel really free to try things and see what the response is. So I hope that's a little food for thought. Eula says, so do more positive than negative associations lead to more optimism? Exactly. Everything that happens in life has an association. And when we have a lot of good associations with life, you're right, Eula, there's less need for control. When we have a lot of negative associations with life, bad stuff happens to me. We got to control it. We got to control it for our survival. And that's reasonable. So when I have, I just had a horse bump into me a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and move around a little bit. When they bump into you, their need for control, their concern that something is going to go wrong starts to come up for them. And I'm just going to pass by that. I'm going to move on. I'm going to not give it any extra attention. Because I don't want to reinforce that pessimism or that concern that life isn't good enough. Life is good enough. We can figure out how to tickle the senses in a way where something good's going to happen. And then we don't need to control the future. We just have to show up and see what happens. And that allows freedom for everybody. If you get a horse that comes with a lot of past baggage, a lot of bad associations with life, where a lot of bad things have happened to them, and they've ruminated on that, and they've remembered that, and that is a big part of their history, those are horses where you might need to control some controllables for a little while so they feel safe enough. They feel like life is going to be okay for them. And that's valid. It's okay. It's okay to show them you understand their pessimism in life. How do we build patterns and predictability and make sure that they know we are avoiding the bad things in life? But hopefully you grow out of that. Hopefully you grow out of that pessimistic state where you think everything might be bad, and into a state where there's more freedom for everybody to just try something. It might be good. You never know. Let's just show up, interact with pauses to check, is that as good for you as it is for me? So those are my thoughts today. A little bit of optimism versus pessimism from the Wild Mustang Ranch in Lyons, Georgia. I'm going to go ahead and get ready for my clinic today and see if we can foster more and more optimism in all the horses, that you can just show up and maybe good things happen. You don't have to control it. You don't have to worry about it. You just have to show up and interact with pauses in the right places. And then everybody remembers good associations, so they feel free to try things in the future without worrying that it's going to go badly. All right, thank you guys for joining me for tea time. Next week, I will be in Adelaide, Australia, so it'll be at a very different time. I will go ahead and post that on Facebook and let you guys know when Tuesday tea time is. I am doing my best to do tea times first thing in the morning, as soon as I wake up, so that I don't get carried away with my day and forget it's Tuesday. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week.